What's up, my Beardos and Weirdos? OneTopic here, and we're diving right into this channel's favorite subreddit, r/NuclearRevenge. We have two stories to go over today. The first story is about a bully who bullies the wrong kid. The second story is about a performance review for a sales job that does not go as planned. Alright, let's get started. Made sure he never bullied me again. This broke the rules at r/ProRevenge, so I'ma post it here. It's a short story, but here goes. I was 15 at the time. This dude was 19. Over the course of 2 years, this C-unit humiliates me, calls me names, questions my sexuality, etc. Makes my life a living hell. My parents came to the school, and he stops. For 2 days. Third day in, he jumps me in the schoolyard, gives me a black eye, and breaks my glasses. My friends who were with me managed to fend him off, but the damage was done. Now, instead of going to the teachers, I leave school and wait for him behind a dumpster nearby. As soon as he passes, I broke my skateboard in his back and book it. Cracked 2 of his ribs. School hears this and we both get sent to the principal's office. I tell everything on him, including the skateboard part, so that the dumb guy has no shiz on me. School checks cameras and sees him hit me. They called the cops and he is arrested for assault and has to pay for my glasses. I got suspended for 2 weeks. Only saw him the next year and he avoided me like the plague. Fusing worth it. OP. Sometimes it's nice to read these stories about getting, real physical revenge, but it's not something I ever really condone. This guy clearly had some issues. If you're in school, you're 15, this guy's 19, there's something else going on if he's bullying you for 2 years. So what is he, 21 when this finishes, and you were 17? So you're still a minor throughout that entire thing, and this guy's picking on you? This definitely should have involved the authorities sooner, but good on you for being able to stand your ground. Interesting that you knew how he'd walk past your very specific dumpster that you were hiding behind. Thanks for sharing the story, OP. My performance review that became my manager's performance review. Lots of folks at r/ProRevenge suggested I post this to summarize what happened. I was the top salesperson by a large margin at a location that was vastly underperforming. My sales manager accused me of lying in front of the VP. I proved I wasn't lying. I then put out 2 more facts of information, and as a result, she was fired as a result of my performance review. Enjoy. I hope it fits. Guys, I know this is long, but I assure you, this is a juicy one. I was working with a business-to-business sales company. We sold services to companies, basically. And this company had managed to hire the most incompetent, lazy, and jealous sales manager I have ever come across. We were a team of 5 salespeople and a sales manager. All 5 of us salespeople hated our sales manager for various reasons, but we liked her personally. I was the top salesperson on the team. I was sitting at 170% of my yearly objective and was well on my way to the President's Club. This is largely because I was the only salesperson on the team with real sales experience, and the sales manager was too incompetent to train a team. So my VP came down for our yearly performance reviews, and I was called in first. It was my VP, and Mrs. B, short for Beche. I was expecting a positive performance review. Right off the bat, Mrs. B hits me with,
"Sting, you know our location hasn't been performing at objective for a number of years, and we suspect this is because salespeople are misrepresenting their daily work."
I'm taken aback.
"Sting, I don't think you're actually doing what you say you're doing in your CRM. This is something that could get you fired."
I look at Mrs. B and I say, "Really?" She said,
"Yeah."
I hit her back with, "I'm shocked you decided to go this route." Mrs. B, with a confident smile, said,
"We gotta do what it takes to get this location on objective."
I said, "Alright, let's play a game. Mrs. B, pick a day, any day in the CRM, and let me prove to you that I went to all my appointments and did all my stops as recorded."
"Well, Sting, I'm not saying that you never go in the field. I just think some days you stay at home and put in some BS notes in the CRM."
I said, "Mrs. B, pick a day, any day. Pick a day you think I lied about my sales activities." So, Mrs. B picks a day. Now I'm smiling ear to ear, and I'm fusing heated right now. I notice the VP is smiling at me, and his head is slanted to one side. I suspected he knew Mrs. B was about to get absolutely fusing owned. And he was right. So she gives me the day, and I turn to the VP. Mr. VP, are you aware of how Android phones work? VP responds, enlighten me. I said, by default, Android has location services turned on, and in fact, Google will track where you went and when. Naturally, I carry my phone everywhere, so let's compare what Google says I did that day to what the CRM says. So I pull up my Google location services for that day, and surprise, surprise, it is a match. Mrs. B is obviously very concerned at this point. I said, I'm actually quite enjoying this performance review. Let's pick another day, Mrs. B. Mrs. B fires back.
We don't need to do that.
I turn to the VP. Mr. VP, would you mind picking a day? He says, sure. What about XYZ? He pulls up my CRM. I pull my location services for that day. And guess what? It's a match. I then get ready to pull out the big guns. Mr. VP, do you remember company XYZ with a contract value of excess of $1 million that we lost recently?
Yes, Sting, I remember. Apparently our competitor won them over on price. We can't win them all.
Mr. VP, here is an email from their VP basically stating that they've decided not to go with us for our failure to provide 3 samples for them to decide on which product worked best for them.
Sting, can you forward that to me?
Sure, not a problem, Mr. VP. Forwarded it over. Mr. VP, while I'm at this, let me forward you over several email chains before this where I clearly asked Mrs. B to order those samples. In fact, in those very same email chains, she confirmed that she had in fact ordered the sample. He asked me to forward those emails to him, so I did. Now, Mr. VP, I had our service department look to see if any orders had been placed for those samples. No orders were actually placed. He said,
I am going to look into this.
Mrs. B is fusing, sweating, mother-fusing bullets at this point. My performance review was just turned into her performance review, and shit's not going right. Mr. VP, I have one more thing I'd like to bring to your attention. Do you mind if I step outside for a minute so I can show you? He said,
Sure, I need to have a talk with Mrs. B anyway.
Now, I need to mention that several years prior to this, a general manager at another location assaulted a woman. The company was sued and lost a lot of money because of this. Since this incident, the company put in a very clear-cut policy: no sexual relations between management and people who work for them. It's immediate termination for the manager. Now, another sales consultant in the office, who was named Joe. Joe was a married man with 2 beautiful kids, and Mrs. B had the hots for him. She tried to have sex with him multiple times, twice on text. Joe and I had talked about if he should report this transgression. I walked into the sales office and said, Joe, I think it's time we get a new sales manager. You got those texts? He looks at me and goes,
Is today going to be the day?
I said, today is going to be the day. All the sales staff knew what was going on. The mood in the office was lifted. Joe and I began walking back to the conference room where the location manager, who was not a part of the performance review, saw Joe and I. He asked, What's going on? And Joe said, You're going to need to hire a new sales manager soon. Location manager was confused. He said he's coming into the meeting. We said fine. I knocked on the door. Mr. VP said to come on in, and so I did. There we stood. Joe, myself, and the location manager. Mrs. B knew exactly what was about to happen. We all took our seats, and I asked the VP, Mr. VP, I just want to clarify a company policy.
Sure.
Is it true that if a manager tried to engage in a sexual relationship with a direct report, that it's immediate termination for that manager? Mr. VP sits up straight, takes a moment, and goes,
Yes, if something like that came to my attention, my hands would be tied. I'd have to fire the manager.
I said, Well, Joe has something he wants to show you. Mrs. B got up and walked out of the conference room. She was going to cry, you could tell. Her world, her career, had just completely wrecked, and I don't think she wanted to be around for the end. Joe went on to tell the VP how he's a happily married man with 2 beautiful kids, and Mrs. B kept hitting on him. In fact, she had sent him numerous sexual texts, and on 2 occasions, openly invited him to come have sex with her. Once in the office, and once at his home, even after he had made it clear he wasn't going to have sex with her. Mr. VP asked to see the texts, and Joe provided them. The VP asked him to screenshot those and email those over. Joe said he would. Then the VP said,
I'm going to need both of you to go back to the sales office. The location manager and I have some talking to do.
We walked back into the sales office. I noticed that the sales manager office had looked cleaned out. Apparently, Mrs. B was bailing. She was a wreck and crying, and said she was going home. Joe laughed and said,
Yeah, she won't be coming back.
It was about 20 to 25 minutes when the VP came into the sales office and asked me to come to the conference room again. So I did. I sat down and the VP said,
Well, I would like to inform you that Mrs. B has been terminated effective immediately. With this being said, after your performance review and looking over your numbers, you are our top sales rep in this location and deserve nothing short of stellar remarks on your review, and you'll be getting that.
I said, Thank you. I do have one question. He said,
Sure, anything.
How do I apply for the new sales manager job that just opened up? Mr. VP laughed and said,
You sure do like to strike while the iron is hot, don't you?
I said I do. He said he would let the location manager know, and I'd be able to put in my application. I thanked him, and he said,
No, thank you. In my 35 years of being in sales and sales management, that was by far the most interesting performance review I have ever witnessed.
I did not end up getting promoted. I ended up quitting shortly after this. Because they decided to not promote me, and instead hired a guy with no sales experience to be our sales manager. And this rubbed me the wrong way. Also, our service department sucked and couldn't deliver on what I was selling, and another company offered me more money. As is the way of the salesman. Chase the larger paycheck. Good on you, OP. It looks like, while this was a bit of a vindictive way to go about this, you were well within your rights to stand up for not only yourself, but your coworker. It seems like you sort of dragged them along for your revenge, but they were more than willing to say that things that were inappropriate were happening at the office, and good on you both for being able to directly give that information to the VP, and a lot of those instances do not get reported. Sucks to see you didn't get that promotion, but hey, now that you're at another company, maybe you'll make more money and end up earning that promotion. Thanks for sharing that story, OP. Definitely an interesting one. Alright, my Beardos and Weirdos, that was another foray into r/NuclearRevenge. These were a fun couple stories. One really short one and one very long one. All of these videos are made on request, so let me know below what you thought of this one, what you'd like to see me do next, and if you have any favorite subreddits. I'm happy to do anything that I really enjoy reading, so if you suggest something and I really enjoy reading through it too, you're going to see a video on it. Alright, my Beardos and Weirdos. We'll see you in the next video, where we take it one topic at a time.